everybody. It's Jonathan Doyle with you once again. Welcome back to the Daily Podcast. Really looking forward to this time with you today. Hope I can bring you a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of encouragement. I think that's all we need sometimes, just a little bit of a positive voice to get our day or our evening underway. And I hope I can do that for you today. I hope you've been enjoying some of the recent episodes as I've been responding to listener questions from many of you all around the world. We seem to be all experiencing some similar things at the moment. So perhaps together we can find some ways through. Housekeeping, please make sure you've subscribed. Hit that subscribe button and go and check out all the links. I've put a new link in there. I think there's 2 new links in there now. If you're listening to the podcast version, there's a link to the YouTube channel, and there's a link to Karen's MasterClass for women. So Karen does amazing work with women all around the world in personal goals, family, business. So go check out her MasterClass because I just think it's really good, and I'm very proud of what she does. And anything else, I think, you can get free copies of my book. It's in the links there, so go check that out. What else did I want to say? There was something else on my mind. It's not the topic, the focus of today's topic, but I've just been back to restructuring my mornings a little bit and getting back to some journaling. I think if you spent 24 hours with me, you'd be like, really? You this is how you live? Like, I have to do a bunch of things every single day just to keep me moving forward. And I don't know, I don't like to kind of let life happen to me so much. I kind of like to be organized, and I guess I want to get the most out of each day. I want to contribute as much as possible. I want to get myself in the best place I can be so that I can enjoy life and be a blessing to others. So I find that I need to do certain things. I think it was yesterday's episode maybe that I talked about, in time management in terms of non-negotiables. I hope you heard that one. That really one of the ways to deal with overwhelm and exhaustion is to have non-negotiables, is to have 1 or 2 things that are really crucial. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this, but Karen and I are having these discussions at the moment because I keep trying to get her to go swimming. She loves to swim, and we're in a really busy season of life, and getting her out the door to get in that pool, even though she loves it, is my current goal of the day. I'm just constantly going, come on, let's get you there, let's do it. And it's really interesting that I observe in her this kind of tension between knowing that something's really valuable and worthwhile, but then giving yourself the permission and freedom to do it. So we deal with it as a family. I'm sure many of you guys do as well. But what you find is that when you go ahead and do these things, on the other side of it, there's a real change. This ties into today's topic, which we're about to get to in a moment, but I just want to encourage you guys to get these non-negotiables in place. I'm back journaling. I'm back using my diaries more effectively so that, as soon as I wake up, I have headphones on, I have music and motivational stuff that I choose very carefully. So the second I wake up, I'm getting myself ready. I'm getting myself primed. I know some of you will be listening going, really? Like that's how much you're into this stuff? I go, yeah, I have to be. I have learned, I'm really, focused on this at the moment, that so much of the time our internal dialogue, our cognition cannot be helping us. And so I've decided to take that sucker out of play by constantly filling my consciousness with things that are helpful to me, with things that I find beneficial, and then I have a coffee in my downstairs office, and then I'm journaling every day just a little bit just to get myself clear on what matters, and then I'm into the diary, and then I'm into, then I head out into the studio, and then get the day underway, get the training underway. So I just want to remind you that if you want to get a little bit of improvement in life, if you want to change your reality, your circumstance a little bit, you have to do different things. Sometimes if we just sit passively and expect life just to, throw us rainbows and unicorns, it doesn't happen. We have to be active participants in this journey. So today I'm responding to a great question from Amanda, who, I try to keep everybody pretty much anonymous here unless they tell me otherwise, because I don't want someone going to work and going, hey, I heard a podcast today, they talked about you. So Amanda has asked a question about COVID burnout. She says, can we talk about the demands of work, home, everyday life? They've become too much for so many people. How do we handle COVID burnout and find peace with our souls to be with God and re-energize? Great question, Amanda. I feel it. I just, one of my goals in this podcast is to try to avoid going too deep down the rabbit hole of what I actually think about what's happened over the last few years. I know that not everybody would share my views, but I will simply say that I think historians will look back at how vast amounts of these things have been managed and will just scratch their heads. So the COVID burnout piece, which I guess is a vast plethora of factors, from lockdowns to mandates to all these different things that affected so many of us in so many ways. The burnout that comes from that, look, my first thought would be at the top level, at the highest level, what we're actually talking about is recovery and healing. We're actually talking about recovery and healing. I've been talking about this a bit lately. We're humans. If we hurt ourselves physically, we require physical healing. Many of you know I had that horrific accident in 2019, and the healing process, and I still obviously have all the scars and other impacts, but the healing process took 6 to 12 months. And, we're comfortable with the idea that our physical bodies need to heal, but often we don't realize that our psychological self, our psyche, our spirits, our relationships also require healing. So I want to frame that first. Healing, there's so many different ways in which humans can heal emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. It can be counseling, it can be prayer. I said recently what I do each day is I sit for an hour in the cathedral in the city where we live, and I just sit there and I have my headphones on and I listen to things and I sort of have time for prayer and meditation. And I think a lot of healing comes into my life through that decision every day that I make for that. So the first thing about this is, we don't necessarily recover from COVID burnout just by thinking about it. We have to do certain things. And, this ties into the second part of Amanda's question, which is about the demands of work, home, and everyday life. I've been saying in multiple episodes recently, we are born at a very complex moment in human history, and we need to be kind to ourselves, because I think we easily fall into the trap of believing that we're the problem, that we should be working harder, we should be smarter, we shouldn't be feeling the way we are. And we forget that, we didn't ask to be born when we got born. Now, there's many wonderful benefits of this moment in history, but there's a great deal of complexity and dislocation and fracturing of families and relationships and friendships and all the busyness that comes at us in the technology. So we need to acknowledge that and not beat ourselves up, and practice genuine compassion for ourselves and go, wow, okay, this is hard actually, and it's hard because it's hard. It's hard because there are structural components that make the whole thing pretty difficult at times. So we want to start from that place of healing. We want to start from that place of self-compassion. We want to get on our own team. There are forces that surround us that are inimical to our flourishing. They don't like us, and they want us to be fractured, distracted, because then we can be more directed, we can be controlled, we can be forced into more consumerism, all those sorts of things. So, when we're grounded and rested and paying attention to life and reality and what truly matters, we begin to question some of the systems around us, right? And I know some of you going, Jonathan, what happened to you? I just think the last few years have really shaped a lot of stuff for many of us, and we need to start thinking about, hang on, what is important? What really does matter? And on that, I want us to begin to question the internal narratives we have, and I think part of what Amanda's question's getting towards is this idea of, well, this is just how it is. I think for many of us, if we are living on the treadmill and we're living in the overwhelm and the busyness, we struggle to ever question it. We go, well, this is how it is. I've got to pay the mortgage. I've got to do this. I've got to get the kids here. I've got to do that. I've got to do this. But the ability to actually stop and go, hang on. Is this all true? Is this really how I want to live? We often don't do that part, because the narrative, the assumption we have is that this is the only way it can be. And we're like, the ducks, on a pond, right? Calm on the surface, but paddling frantically underneath, trying to keep up with it all. So I just encourage us all, whether it's through journaling, or you got to be deliberate here. You have to go places. So I sit in churches. That's where I find places of calm and reflection. And I sit there and I kind of go, what's going on? What matters? What's significant? What am I here to do? What is, God saying to me? I know you're all different spiritually. So what is, the great spirit that animates the cosmos trying to say to you, right? So, but you can't hear that if you're stuck in the overwhelm. So question that internal story that you have. About just this is how it is, because maybe this is a hard way to think about it, but if you suddenly, had a terrible illness and you realized that your life was going to be cut short, God forbid, then you would suddenly experience a new level of consciousness. You would be thrust into confronting what truly is important to you. So whether that for some people means downsizing, whether for some people it means not taking a promotion, whether for some people it means saying no to some aspect of your life so that you can be open to more time with your kids or your friends or music or whatever is important to you. So friends, we're talking about healing. We're talking about questioning our internal beliefs about what's actually going on in our lives. And we've got to take some agency back. We've got to have some agency. We've got to take back our power and kind of go, hang on, how do I want to live? What is significant for me? What are the non-negotiable, important, precious things in my life that I need to find? Now, the other point I wanted to make on Amanda's question, the whole big COVID burnout, overwhelm, busyness, demand stuff, is I had this thought in my head about kind of, it's like a shipwreck and there's an island in the distance and you have to swim towards it, as quickly as to save yourself. And by that, for that metaphor that came to me, I sense that what we have to do is, if we can't necessarily change all of the stuff that's going on, then we need to create little islands of recovery and respite and beauty and stillness and joy. So by that I mean you're going to have to get deliberate and conscious about, experiencing what you really want to experience, right? So something we've been doing a lot recently as a family is we go to church Sunday mornings early, and then we load up the car with all this stuff, and we take off into the national park, and we've got this beautiful place with a fire pit, and very frequently on Sunday mornings we will sit out in the middle of nowhere, just the five of us, and we'll have a big fire, and I take a gas barbecue out there, and we cook a big breakfast. I can't confirm or deny if Karen and I open a bottle of champagne. It's the Lord's Day. We're celebrating. And we just kick a soccer ball and we just waste a lot of time. And it's this little island because the world goes on without us. And when we drive back into town, it's all still there. But we found this island. We found this little island, and we found it because it was deliberate. And it's a leadership thing, like not blowing my own trumpet, but I decided I wanted to create something for us. While our kids are still young, I wanted to have this sort of experience together. And it's amazing what happens when you take your kids and they've got nothing to do. Our kids don't really use much tech, but even if they had it, there's nothing out there. There's no cell towers, so they sit in chairs and they stare at the fire and they cook things and they roast marshmallows and go down to the river. So that's just one thing, right? And then each day of the week, I go into the church for an hour to get my island of time. And if some of you are thinking, well, I can't do that, you don't understand. Friends, you can do it, So it's not just I just wander off and leave Karen to take care of everything. Like, I do a huge amount of stuff either side of these little islands that I create. So your island could be picking up the guitar you haven't played in a year. Your island could be taking out a gym membership. If I could say this nicely, so many, people just don't do the thing that they want to do because they have a story about why they can't do it. It's that old saying, the French saying, the graveyard is full of indispensable people. There's going to come a time when we don't have any more time. So take that time now, today. Do it today, because if you get that time, if you create that island either for yourself, your spouse, your kids, your friends, just pick up the phone and say, hey, let's go out for lunch. Pick up the phone and say, like today, like it's early, very early here on a Sunday. And I know some of you are judging me now thinking, Jonathan, what are you doing? It's the Lord's Day. You shouldn't be at work. Super early. Everyone's asleep back at my house. But I've already researched a really beautiful film that's on today. And I'm going to take the whole family because it's just a great time together. And we're very selective about what we watch. It's a really beautiful film. For those of you that are now wondering, it's called The Return of the Railway Children. And you won't find it in most cinemas. We've got this little arty cinema that we know because it's a really nice film, and really nice films that are good for families, they can be hard to find. So look, that's my point, is we're making an island today. At 10 a.m. we're going to have this island as a family, and then we'll find something else to do. And then, Monday will come around and we'll all be crazy again. So you with me? Let's sum this up. Look for ways to heal. Question your internal narrative about why you can't live differently. Say no to some things. There's a spectrum here, right? From just small little things you can do all the way to completely changing your career or moving to another part of the country where it's different. So you actually do have the power, and you've got to think in terms of, if my life is running out, if this never changes, there's another good question. If you are trapped in overwhelm and exhaustion, ask yourself this question: what if this never changes? What if you have to live like this for the rest of your life? Now, that can be done. There are people who've had to live under very difficult circumstances and found a way to still live beautifully. That can be done. But it is also possible to realize that there are times when we need to make significant changes. So, Amanda, thank you for your beautiful question. I feel what you're saying. I experience it many times. I know most people listening experience it, but we are not passive. We are not pure victims. We have agency. We can change things. And all I want to say to everybody today is, maybe it's not a big change. Maybe it's just a little thing today. Maybe today you just swim to a small island, and maybe in a month's time you find yourself wandering around on a bigger island of rest, a bigger island of enjoyment. Do fun stuff. Do things that make you laugh. Do things that bring you closer to the people you love. All right, I've got to stop there. So what else? Listen, God bless you, everybody. Please make sure you've subscribed. Go check out those show notes, the masterclass, coaching with me, book me to speak at conferences, events. All that stuff is there. I'd love you to share this with people. I'm sure you've got plenty of friends and family members that are living under overwhelm and exhaustion. So send them this episode. Say, hey, listen to this. There's some good ideas in this. All right, I'm praying for you guys. I'm so grateful that you're listening so regularly and that the show is growing, but I really appreciate it. Reach out to me if you need me, Jonathan at jonathandoyle.co.co, and I usually get back to people on email really quickly. Don't have much social media because I don't need any more overwhelm. God bless you, everybody. Hang in there. Keep walking. You got this. My name's Jonathan Doyle, and I'm going to have another message for you tomorrow.